Welcome. This is a portion of a 2 hour conversation that took place in June of 2019 after the NRA national meetings. A conversation about NRA with Mac from Military Arms Channel, Jeff Knox from Firearms Coalition, Rob Pincus from ICE and 2AO, Shawn from We Like Shooting, and Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Together, we talked about the current state of the NRA, where it's going, and what we can do. Links to each of the participants and the full 2 hour conversation are available below.
And this wasn't my idea by any stretch. This was actually, I think, Josh Prince and Adam. I know, Jeff, you were involved in the conversations about exactly how to use the members meeting. And I was invited to be one of the guys. Obviously, I'm not afraid to get up and talk and speak to a crowd or a microphone or a camera or whatever. So, hey, do you want to join in on this? And it really was all kind of just hatched as an idea. Like, here, we got to know Robert's Rules of Order. We have to know when to strike, and we have to be adamant and assertive in this little brief moment of the window of the opportunity to act. They then tried immediately to say, well, no, we've read all the resolutions that we all did handwritten. We had 30 minutes to submit things. We submitted resolutions. They said, basically, all these things are already going to be talked about at the board meeting, but we appreciate the members submitting them. Thanks, but no thanks. Let's move on, move to adjourn second. And then we won that vote by a very narrow margin, not to adjourn with the people that were there on the floor. And that allowed us the opportunity to have Frank Tate step up and read the resolution that he worked on with Josh and Adam and kind of as the everyday member who didn't have a name, didn't have any personal agenda, didn't have any, platform to promote any of that, to represent the true everyday member, step up and read that resolution calling for the vote of no confidence in Wayne and many other things. And then what we saw happen was the board of directors, who, as I understand it, really, this is coming from other board members, also never really speak at that meeting. It's really a meeting for the members to speak to the officers in front of the board of directors, and they circled the wagons fast. And they went into a panic mode, and the contempt that they had for us. One board of director even turned to another one and said, "Are they allowed to do that?" And it was amazing how incredulous they were. Rathner turned to me and told me at one point that I was a joke and that this was absurd, and the contempt in his voice. It's a classic video that we've got kind of in the background. People can go to my YouTube and see the videos of some of the members of the old guard speaking to us like we shouldn't even have been there. It was really quite amazing. I mean, at one point I turned to Josh Prince and I said, "Hey, if did you script this? I mean, when you heard some of these people speaking, Kushnick and Porter and Marion Hammer saying things about being secret and how members don't need to know this, it was amazing that they were coming right out and saying this with an amazing amount of just contempt and derision towards voting members who are concerned about what's going on. So absolutely, I think this is something that we know they're going to rally, they're going to circle the wagons, they're going to do things to make it harder to have that happen again next year. But the more the merrier. I, for one, do not believe that I'm doing the NRA any favors by showing up, right? Like, I'm not buying a booth. I'm not running a business there. I'm not contributing. I get in for free. I have my life membership. I don't encourage people to pay the annual fee for 5 years to try to get a vote that's almost meaningless. By the time they pay the fees, taking those fees away mean much more. But if you're already a voting member, show up, because you're hurting them, Tim, especially you, with a voice like you have, the agenda you have, and the narrative that you are sharing with people. It hurts the NRA, you being there, much more than it helps them. So I encourage everybody on this group, and certainly everybody who's listening and watching. I think a lot of people were inspired by that, what they saw come out of that members meeting. And also, by the way, I had a lot of Ring of Freedom members come up to me. I had a lot of corporate people, Ackerman McQueen, some other people that work inside the NRA. One of the jokes was, which one of you guys was thinking about tripping over the wire for the feed? Because that was broadcast out on the floor of the show. And I heard from a lot of people who were watching that live that there were a lot of nervous looks and a lot of, awkward faces and agitated hand wringing going on inside the NRA booth.
Just wait until next year.
Yeah, so show up.
What we were watching live with the room, and it would pan back and forth to you guys, that was being broadcast throughout the room.
Yeah.
Membership. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. When I learned about it, I was like blown away. Yeah, and absolutely. I want to take the fight to them. And I can't think of a better way now. So
how do you guys feel if, like I say, I was frustrated because we had a chat with Jeff days before. I think I basically concluded the chat with, what can we do? What can somebody do that's there? And you literally took like 5 minutes to describe, go to that meeting at 10 o'clock. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. It all transpired as if you were reading a script, right? And,
absolutely. Not my first rodeo.
They would show the camera to where like Rob is over here on the right, in the back of the room. And then they'd show this guy who was fumbling through the procedures or whatever, just making a mockery of it. And every time they pan, there's this room of seats, and it was, what am I exaggerating, 50% empty? I mean, it was frustrating how many
every bit of 40% for sure.
Okay, and well, what I guess what Shawn is alluding to, or ideally what we're talking about, is having those seats not only full, but ideally the people that we're sitting there, we're old guys. So if we can get there intentionally at 6 a.m., we've got that room, right? And
right,
we have an intent, we have a reason. So what I'm asking you guys, if we can accomplish that, or let me rephrase that, when we accomplish that, does that influence? Do we own that room? What happens with the NRA when we do that?
So, I mean, look, these guys are really good at playing these games. I said Game of Thrones and I meant it in every way possible. They know where to sit. They know what to do. They understand Robert's Rules of Orders. They understand the bylaws. And by the way, if you request the bylaws from the NRA, they send you the 2016 bylaws. So it's not even accurate and up to date. I still cannot, as a voting member, I still cannot get the most recent version of the bylaws. They won't send it as PDF. They won't do anything else. They mail you a piece of crap, 2016 bylaws that's got a pink cover on it, and it's just not right. So even there, we're missing a little bit. And Tim, Rob, Gun Websites, I will include all of you guys, everyone. But my problem right now is I am trying to become way more familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, because it's important for all of us to do this. Like, this is the weapons that they already have used against us, and they will come up with more weapons to use against us, but we need to understand the ones that have already been there, right? We need to understand how their sword is built so that we may defeat it. But also not just that, the bylaws and the accurate bylaws, so that we know what to do. I mean, Josh Prince killed it with a bunch of that stuff. He is the one that got that extended and made sure that the resolution was actually read. So we have to show up, but we have to show up and we have to be mentally ready, and we have to be ready to play their game and to beat them at their own game. And that is such an astronomically difficult and epic thing that I just said, because they've been doing it for decades. And, here I am just trying to get into it a little bit in my 40s.
Everybody in that room with a camera broadcasting or recording, though, and then sending it out, people in the membership seeing it happen, that has influence, right? That has effect.
Absolutely.
Rob, you're sideways, Rob. Something happened with you.
Sorry about that.
I think we need to collectively probably have an offline conversation, do regular strategy sessions, especially leading up to the next NRAAM, so we can approach our audience and audiences and maximize the effect. Because I like you said, Shawn, I don't want to go there and not be prepared, because they will be looking for us. When I told everybody I basically just sold the Not Real Activist shirts at cost, and I said, meet me out front, and we're all going to go in. They stopped me with security. They watch these things. They watch our podcasts and live streams and videos. And security caught me and pulled me aside. And my cameraman had my phone and he was recording it. And he goes, I don't want any video of this. And I nodded to him, and it's like, he knows that their shtick. Don't turn the camera off for anything, right? He's not going to abide by that. So he pretended like he wasn't recording, but he held it down by side and recorded the conversation. But, they tried to talk me down and not going in and creating a ruckus. They weren't going to let me in. I had heard through the rumor mill, they weren't going to let me in. And sure enough, security caught me at the door. And I said, look, I'm just going in there to have a conversation with people. I'm not going to go out there with a loudspeaker. I have no, megaphone. I'm just going to go around and have conversations with people. I'm a life member. You telling me I don't have access? And they backed down. They let me in. But so they will probably watch this video or other videos we produce, and they will be prepared. So, we probably ought to have a plan A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things about it too is knowing Robert's Rules of Orders is important, and anybody who wants to dig into that and get familiar with them, yes, that's helpful. But the average Joe doesn't need to know that. We have visible, recognizable presences. We know who each other are, and most of our folks know who we are. And as long as they come into it knowing who they're watching and seeing that Adam Kraut or Rob Pincus stands up and says, hey, wait a minute, why aren't we doing this? Or why are you trying to keep us from doing that? And they all know that that's when they're supposed to say, yeah, why, harump. That's what really matters. And that's how it ends up working. You can't ask 200 or 500 or 600, wouldn't it be great to bring in 1,000 people? And you can't ask them all to be experts on this, but do you trust us? Do you believe in what we're trying to do? Join us and participate and help us out. And that's how you do it.
But if you recall the reports, they were 100%. It was a unanimous decision to keep Wayne. So who do we trust?
Yeah, that's misleading. It was an acclamation vote, and it was the chair said without objection, done, and they called that unanimous. I was expecting, and actually going into the meeting, they had a majority that was in support of Alan West stepping in on an interim basis, and they that fizzled during the members' meeting. They started running scared and really bending ears, and went into the directors meeting with a lot of fence sitters. And for some reason, no one nominated West. And I don't know if they were waiting for him to stand up and say something and he didn't, or he was waiting for them to stand up and nominate him and they didn't. But it ended up, they said, well, we only have one nominee, and I move we elect them by acclamation, all without objection, boom, and that's the end of it. That's the way it works.
Yeah, and I don't. Is it Robert's Rules or the bylaw? I don't remember which. One of them actually says that if the position for EVP that position runs unopposed, there's not even a requirement for an actual vote. So by that point, and they actually do call it unanimous at that point.
And it's not like they can say, I have a problem with this, because there's nothing else to change. There's no other option.
Yeah, there wasn't much point to it, except that someone could have and should have stood up and said, I object, and just to get it on the record. But then if they were smart, and they are, what they would have done is gone to a ballot vote to force the people who were in opposition to out themselves. I mean, there's a handful that are out that they are clearly and loudly in opposition to Wayne LaPierre, but there are a whole lot of people in the middle. The majority of the board is in between, and they don't want to come out openly on either side of the argument at this point or at that point. And that's weak-kneed, gutless on their part. But at the same time, from a political standpoint, tactical standpoint, people who are potentially your friends, you don't want to out them and force them to choose before you get a chance to really get them on your side. And so that's where it kind of works.
This is a portion of a 2-hour conversation that took place in June of 2019 after the NRA national meetings. A conversation about NRA with Mac from Military Arms Channel, Jeff Knox from Firearms Coalition, Rob Pincus from I.C.E. and 2AO, Shawn from We Like Shooting, and Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Together, we talked about the current state of the NRA, where it's going, and what we can do. Links to each of the participants and the full 2-hour conversation are available below.